Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Adult Chair on rashpixel.fm. I'm Pete Wright, and I am thrilled to be here again with Michelle Chalfant. Michelle.
Hi, Pete.
How are you? You feeling good? You feeling
wonderful.
Strong?
I'm very, very excited about our guest today, I have to say.
Me too. We are talking about childhood programming today and the impact of our childhoods on our lives as adults. And we have a very special guest to help us do that. Before we get started, head over to theadultchair.com to learn more about the show. You can subscribe for free by signing up to our mailing list. And of course, you can find us anywhere the finest podcasts are served with a quick search for The Adult Chair. You can join the conversation on Facebook or Twitter. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget, jump into the private Facebook group. It's still growing and going strong, and we sure appreciate all your participation there. Just request an invitation to that group at michellechalfant.com. Lisa A. Romano is a certified life coach who specializes in mentoring adult children of alcoholics who are seeking to move beyond their painful pasts. She's a best-selling author, a radio show host, and a speaker. Her latest book, Codependent Now What? It's Not You, It's Your Programming, is available now. Lisa Romano, welcome to The Adult Chair.
Welcome. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm really excited about this opportunity.
We're so happy to have you, Lisa. I found Lisa, when was that first book out of yours? Like somewhere 2000, probably, I'm thinking it was probably 4 years ago that I actually listened to The Road Back to Me. Mm-hmm. On your journey on your whole life path. And I was taking a road trip and wanted an audiobook and found that. And I thought, I'd never heard of you. And I thought, I'll listen to this lady here. And I loved it. So for our listeners that don't know you, would you just let us know a little bit about who you are and how you got to where you are today? That would be great.
Sure. Well, when I was in my early 30s, I was suffering from depression, but I didn't know it. I knew that I was unhappy. I knew that I was miserable. But I didn't know that I was suffering from depression. And I remember, talking to my husband and my family, and everywhere I turned, people told me that I didn't have a right to feel what I felt, which made me feel even crazier. So one day I said to my husband, I'm just going to go into therapy. I wish you would come. And he said, well, I'm not crazy and I'm not unhappy, so you should go. And I thought, okay, sounds good. So I went to a local therapist. I got very, very lucky. I sat down in the therapist's chair. He said, why are you here? And I said, because I think I'm crazy. Everyone thinks I'm crazy. I don't know what's wrong with me. And he took a brief history. He asked me if there was any alcoholism in my family. And my first answer was no. I said, my parents don't drink. And he said, listen to the question. I didn't ask you if your parents drank. I asked you if there was alcoholism in your family. And he was so still. And he was so present. And my mind was a minefield. My mind never stopped racing. So his presence and his stillness really shook me. And he got my attention when he said, listen to the question. So my mind settled down. He repeated the question. And I said, well, actually, both sets of my grandparents are alcoholics and my uncles. So it turned out that I had a whole family of alcoholics, but I had never in my adult life even made the connection to this idea of alcoholism affecting my life. I had no concept of it. So then he said, essentially, then your parents are unrecovered adult children of alcoholics. And I said, I guess so. And he said, well, I've got good news and bad news. You're not crazy, but you are codependent. And you're codependent because you've been raised by unrecovered adult children of alcoholics. And I was really curious. He also said that I was suffering from depression, but I was depressed because I was codependent and essentially I was actually trying to be happy, doing everything that was opposite of actually being happy. I was trying to make everyone else happy by negating what would make me happy. So I had become a people pleaser. I had become a seeker of outside validation. And I thought that was the way to be happy, to take care of other people, worry about other people, be there for other people, and I'll be happy. And it didn't work because I attracted people who took advantage of me. And I was completely unaware of this. So when he said that I was codependent, I'm very curious by nature. and I read everything that I could about codependency. And although I related to the material, there was not much out there that taught me what the hell to do about it. And so I knew then that eventually my life would bring me to a point where I was going to have to figure this stuff out and share it with the world. But I didn't know what that looked like at the time. But I did know after I got divorced, because ultimately I ended up getting divorced. But I did know that at least I wanted to help people understand that they are affected by their childhood experiences. No different than a cell inside our body is affected by the environment outside the cell. We are all products of our environments, and our subconscious minds are affected or infected, depending on how you want to look at it, by the thoughts, attitudes, opinions, and beliefs of the people who raise us. And so by default, I was raised by two codependent people, my mom being more codependent, my dad being more narcissistic. And that relationship dynamic being downloaded through repetition, observation, and consistency had essentially primed me to be a codependent. And when I realized that to heal codependency in a relationship, it would take two committed people, and I didn't have a committed partner, I knew that he was forcing my hand. And because I realized I had for 11 years, my son was 11 at the time, my middle daughter was about 8 or 9, and my little one was about 2. I knew that I had already begun programming my own children for the same dysfunction. And that scared the hell out of me. So I knew something, and I knew I wanted to share it with people, to share what I knew with people. And that's what started me on the path. And that's how I ended up writing The Road Back to Me. But interestingly enough, and you'll appreciate this, Michelle, it took me 12 years to publish it because I was so codependent.
You wouldn't want anyone to know or judge you or make anyone unhappy, would you? I get that.
I didn't want to hurt my parents. I knew that the truth would set me free, and the real truth would ultimately set them free. But that didn't mean they were ready for their truth.
Right.
So I knew that I was taking a big chance and I was going to hurt the people that I loved. But what happened was my sister and her husband were in a very codependent dynamic, obviously, as we all were. But my sister wanted to leave her husband. And when he realized that she was serious about leaving this dynamic, he started drinking, abusing Xanax, and started threatening to commit suicide. And unfortunately, one night he actually succeeded. And when I got that call, I was brought to my knees. And I knew in that moment that I have to publish this book. It was bigger than my family. It was bigger than the hurt that this was going to cause them. And that may sound selfish, but I really, in that moment, I thought, wow, because at 12 years old, I had a gun to my own head. And so I really believed that what I had learned might possibly help somebody. And that in that moment, it was like all that fear was gone. It was like, I have to do this. And so that was the catalyst that allowed me to actually find the confidence and the courage to publish the book.
What a story.
That's quite a story. Did your ex-husband ever come to you and say, man, I wish I'd gone to that first therapy session with you?
No. No.
I mean, I hear your story and you have such a wonderful narrative. And I think, man, like you're his loss. He probably could have learned a lot.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Lisa. Childhood wounding. I talk about this. I've learned about this. I share this with my clients and do it in my own workshops. You have a new book that's out and you're teaching a workshop on this. What was your experience with childhood wounding and then recovering from that? Can you talk a little bit more about your perspective on that?
Sure. I was so blown away when I went into therapy and all my therapist wanted to talk about was my childhood. I was like, what is wrong with this guy? I'm not happy with my husband. I want to talk about how he talks to me. And slowly but surely, as I learned to see past what he was trying to teach me, and I learned about codependency, and I learned about alcoholism, and I learned about how alcoholics really don't see their children. They are invisible. They cannot attune themselves to their children. When I learned about how important it is for a child to feel seen emotionally, psychologically, when I learned about what happens inside a child's psyche when they grow up feeling invisible, when I learned about attachment trauma, I mean, holy cow. I mean, newborns are born with the need to feel, attached and connected and bonded with their mother. And when that doesn't happen, oxytocin doesn't flow. Oxytocin is a bonding chemical. So the first few years of life, the first few months of life, our brainstem is developing all these associations for social skills. The amygdala, the hippocampus, it's affecting the way we relate to ourselves and inevitably how well we are able to relate to other people. So when I learned about how when a parent is arrested in emotional development due to being raised by an alcoholic or due to being an alcoholic or suffering from any other type of addiction, when I began to understand how a parent's disposition affects a child's perception, and I began to understand that the subconscious mind is really at the mercy of the environment that the child is born in. And so if a child is born into a dysfunctional circumstance, then the child is being programmed. That's the word I use, childhood programming.
Yeah.
The child is being programmed to relate to people dysfunctionally. I mean, let's face it, if daddy comes home and he's stressed and he drinks a bottle of scotch or half a bottle of scotch, then falls asleep on the couch and mommy acts like that's okay, and daddy gets up and kicks the cat, and mommy acts like that's okay, and the child starts to cry because they feel tension and daddy says shut up and mommy doesn't act like that's a problem, then the child is learning that my feelings don't matter. I don't have to be heard. I'm unimportant. This is the way we deal with problems. We're learning a lot. We're learning. So when I began to put all the pieces of the puzzle together, I began to understand myself, and I realized that I never felt seen. I don't ever remember having a conversation with my mother outside of, move, vacuum, get ready for school. We have church on Sunday. I mean, a heart-to-heart conversation with my mother was never had. And that affected my sense of self. That affected who I thought I was. That affected my ability to go to school and feel good about myself. I didn't. I didn't. My mother also bullied me. I love her, but she bullied me, which made me afraid of people, which made me walk into a school setting with a chip on my shoulder. I was just so afraid of people seeing a weakness in me and picking a scab. But I didn't understand at the time that I was on the lookout for pain. I was looking for pain. In my attempt to avoid pain, I'd become a magnet for it. That's all this. When it started to click, it just started to make so much sense to me. And I knew, just in my own life, I had my friends who had parents for alcoholics, and I looked at them and I'm like, oh my God, it's with that. They're codependent too. And oh my God,
right.
Oh my gosh, and I started to realize that adults walk around feeling like their childhoods were separate experiences, but they're not. Our adult experiences, in my humble opinion, have been built upon framework that was created in childhood.
It's so true. 0 to 6 years old, we are making I say that we create a roadmap, and then as adults, we live off of that roadmap, and it's dysfunctional as hell. And adults have no idea. They have no idea.
But yet we all know people have been married 2 or 3 times to the same person with a different last name. We all know people who have been raised by alcoholics and somehow we've married an alcoholic, or we all know people whose father, abused mom, and now, unfortunately, they are in a domestically abusive relationship. So we all know people like that. But I think that as adults, we get so caught up in the drama of today or the chaos of today, our jobs, children, their needs, school, our own health issues. We get so caught up in managing what's showing up that we don't often stop long enough to try to figure out why what's showing up is showing up. But if we become, and that's why I'm so heavy into meditations, and I become a meditation, teacher, because I believe that we need to learn how to still the mind so that we can detach from the chaos, detach from the emotions long enough so that we can really be able to objectively look at a thought pattern, objectively look at a thought, objectively look at the patterns in our lives so that we can trace it back to where it's really rooted from. In the second week, I have a 12-week coaching program, and I take members through the entire healing process, from helping them understand what went wrong. I call it the awakening phase. To module 2 is the accountability phase, where we learn to be more accountable for our thoughts and our actions and our daily behavior. And module 3 is about ascension, taking all these tools and applying it to everyday life so that you can really start to become the creator of your own reality, your desired reality. Stop living out of a program. And in the second week of the program, I ask my clients, and I'll share it with your audiences, and they can do it themselves. I ask people to create a quantum timeline. So imagine, your mom, and imagine her being pregnant with you. What kind of life experiences was she experiencing at the time when you were a fetus? Talk about at age 0, at the time of your birth, what was going on in your life at that time that you know of? Go to age 1. What things do you know happened to you or happened to your family when you were 1, when you were 2? What events surrounded your life at that time? And 3, and I have people just create this long quantum timeline. And I have them remember and recall as many things as they possibly can that they believe possibly could have affected their lives emotionally, psychologically. And it's amazing how often when members go back and they do this quantum timeline, they're like, no wonder I was so screwed up. No wonder. I didn't know that mattered. We moved 19 times, but by the time I was 8, I was an army brat. My father was in the army. We moved constantly. No wonder. I remember my mom had an affair when I was 5. My dad found out about it, and my dad nearly killed the man in the house. No wonder that affected me. So it's amazing when you ask an adult to just for a moment, go back in time and remember what it was like for you. What did you experience? What did you feel? What did you learn about yourself? Did anyone make you feel worthy, or did you generally feel unworthy? Did anyone make you feel like you're enough? Did anyone make you feel like you weren't enough? How did they make you feel like you weren't enough? What do you think this taught you about yourself and about your worth? Just for a moment, I ask people to go back and try to piece that together so they can understand what's happening in their mind today.
I've worked with so many people over the years, and I'm listening to you, and I agree with everything, but I wanted to ask your opinion on this. I find that most of us, whether we had alcoholism in the family or not, and again, I think it's all on a scale, of course, but we all come from some kind of dysfunctional family. Some are much worse than others. Would you agree with that? I mean, it seems like very few people come out of childhood as really, really healthy, functioning adults that felt seen and heard, that know how to process their emotions, that had the experience of living with them, even if it wasn't a parent, but a caregiver that was present with them. What's been your experience with that?
I do agree with you, but I have a very spiritual understanding now of that. I believe that all men are born asleep. I don't believe, and it's true, a newborn has a dream state, brainwave state. So even though a child's been born, it doesn't mean they're awake.
Right.
And children are in somewhat of a trance-like state up until about 7 or 8 years old. So the subconscious mind is just accepting data. So I believe that human beings are on the path to awakening. And so everyone's asleep. And then you're right, it's to what degree? And I believe that I think that we are born to evolve consciously. I believe that we are a generation of people who, fortunately or unfortunately, depends on, how you look at it, but pain wakes us up. No different than an infection that is in the toe We know to look at our toe because we feel pain. If we didn't feel pain, we wouldn't investigate. So I think spiritual pain and emotional pain serve us because it helps us wake up. I know it woke me up. And had I not been in so much pain, I would have not have dug as deep as I did. So I do believe that we are all asleep. And I do believe that that sleep state causes dysfunction because we just don't, someone who's unaware is unaware, they're unaware.
Right.
You know, and someone who's unaware, you know, when I think about my great grandmother being born in 1901, I mean, how there was no Dr. Phil, there was no Oprah Winfrey.
Right.
That was the question I was getting at. Like when you look at people who are in trauma, who are in a need of a change, obvious to, let's say, friends and family or peers, whatever, you know, the unknown is going to bite us every time. What is it that typically, you know, helps people wake up to the fact that there's pain, but I could attribute pain to, oh, you know, I haven't been eating well, or I haven't been sleeping well, or and that's why I'm snappy. And I hear that all the time. Like it's just, you know, he's got a low grade, you know, flu or something. It's making him irritable, but he's irritable for like 7 years, you know. I mean, that's a thing. At some point, you have to be woke to the fact that you're in a state of perpetual trauma. What is it that usually gets people to that point of awareness?
I think it depends on the person, and generally people who have a thirst for knowledge, generally people who have a thirst for understanding what's wrong. I mean, there are lots of people who are in pain, like my parents, but they have no thirst for truth. They have no thirst for understanding why they're in pain. I think whether it's a personality thing or whether it's just, you know, a disposition that someone's born with. But in my experience, the people who are attracted to my work are people who have been severely wounded. They are frustrated with their circumstances. They have hit a wall. They are sick and tired of being sick and tired. They are meeting the same types of people. They've aware enough to see a pattern in their life. But honestly, the people that come my way are people who are, I hate to say this, but it's true, really desperate. Like, you know,
I do. Mm-hmm.
I'm done. I've been to the psychiatrists. I've done the medication thing. I've been to gurus. I've followed spiritual teachers halfway across the world. Nothing's working. So I generally believe that people that wake up are people who have a true thirst to wake up. They want to be able to heal. They are willing to look at this pain once and for all, roll up their sleeves and get it done. And not everybody wants to get it done. Some people are just in pain, but they don't take it to the next step. Why am I in pain? What can I do about it? And so
I guess I still have the flu. I guess I still am not sleeping well. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they're very reactive. People who are reactive. So I have the flu. I have a friend, God bless her, has had, I don't know how many issues and diseases she's had, you know, and I look at her and I want to shake her and I want to tell her, just tell me your truth. How do you feel? You know, what's going on? I mean, we know stuff is going on in her life with her husband, you know, we know, but she won't tell us about it, meaning her friends. She begins to talk and her throat turns red. She gets patches of red. She breaks out in rashes, you know, and this is since we're children. But, you know, she'll keep going to the doctor because she's afraid to rock the boat. She's afraid to tell her truth.
Right.
So I think you have to be someone who's on this path and digs as deep as, you know, you have dug and I have dug. I think there's something inside of us that has us driven towards the truth.
This is wonderful stuff. I feel like there are many weeds we could head into here, but I'm very interested in how you do this practically. Can you tell us a little bit more about your breakthrough coaching and masterclass, and a little bit more about the latest book?
Well, Codependent Now What? It's Not You, It's Your Programming, is a book that I created that holds within it a bunch of tools, practical tools that you can learn and you can apply to your life. Because essentially codependency is a product of dysfunctional childhood programming. But it can be a bit woo-woo for someone who's waking up like, what do you mean? I can't trust my thoughts. Like, what do I do now? It's frightening. And I felt like I was walking across a tightrope in my mind. And at any moment, a big wind was going to knock me over. So, I talk about how you have to understand that the mind has the ability to observe itself, or let's say consciousness. I believe consciousness, which I believe is outside the mind, outside of the brain, has the ability to be objective about what is happening in the mental field. So I teach people how to be objective about the thoughts that are in their mind. That is a skill, and it must be practiced. So the Codependent Now What is sort of like a toolbox or a toolkit that people can use, but you have to practice. We've learned through repetition, observation, and consistency. An aha moment is not enough. You have to practice this information. You have to put this to use every day. My 12-week breakthrough coaching program is just, if I do say so myself, awesome. I take these people who are very wounded, and they're incredible. They're very trusting, and I honor that with every fiber of my being, because I remember how desperate I felt. I mean, pain brought me to my knees. When you purchase the program, you gain access to my website, and you get your dashboard. So let's say you buy the program on a Thursday. Every week after that, on every Thursday, you'll receive a new video lesson and a new meditation. You receive a new PDF to download and print, homework assignment. And within each week of this 12 weeks program, there is an online forum, which is just beautiful to watch how members support one another. It's so amazing. And then I also have, in addition to that, a Facebook community where people can relate to one another in real time. So this morning I was on Facebook with a man from Scotland, and earlier there was a woman from India. And we were all just, meshing and jiving within the program as well as on Facebook.
It's so great.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So it's not a live program, so people can join, and they don't. They can just join and they get the program's email. Perfect. So yeah, that's great to know. Okay.
Where do they find that? I assume they can go to lisaeromano.com. Do you have a direct URL for that class, or just head straight to your website?
Just head straight to the website and you just click on more information. And then if you want to join, my next class starts June 1st. So what I do also is every week on a Saturday morning at 9 a.m., I go and I create another video for the class and I address their direct questions. So on Saturday mornings, if the members who are in the program wish to, they can join me within the program and view this new video that's been created to address their individual class, which really helps them feel seen. It helps to facilitate a sense of community. And it's just awesome to answer questions directly that they've posted to their forum. So, that's just an added bonus. It's just an amazing adventure. And the next class starts June 1st. Registration starts now.
Excellent. Well, we'll put links directly to that right in the show notes. Just swipe up in your podcast player and you'll be able to tap through that, everybody. And definitely check that out. Lisa Romano, thank you so much for your time and insights today. We sure appreciate having you on the show.
Oh,
Thank you so much, Lisa.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here. Invite me back anytime.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Sure. This has been great. I love, collaborating with like-minded people. And I just believe in sharing this message of hope. I had a woman write me yesterday and she said, you gave me back something that every member of my family stole from me, a long time ago. And that was hope. So I believe in spreading this type of message, and without hope, people they stop looking, they stop believing. So thank you for giving me an opportunity to collaborate with you and to share the message of hope.
Yeah, thank you.
Beautiful way to wrap us up. Thank you, Lisa Romano, lisaeromano.com. Michelle Chalfant, it is always, always a treat to share the waves with you.
Thank you, Pete.
You're very welcome. On behalf of Lisa and Michelle, I'm Pete Wright. Thank you all for your time and attention today, for downloading and listening to and supporting this show. We sure appreciate it. And we will catch you next time right here in the adult chair.